Nobody wants to be on the hook for something they said after a loss until the league decides your words matter as much as your plays. This is one of those moments where the stadium lights go down and the fallout starts lighting up elsewhere. The Steelers walked out of Cleveland with a season still alive, but a division title gone. And Aaron Rodgers walked into the postgame and said the kind of thing that gets the league's attention: pointed public criticism of officiating on a play that decided the game. Now the NFL is quietly weighing whether to make Rodgers pay for it. And that's a problem that reaches farther than a single fine. Why this matters isn't just about money. It's about tone, precedent, and leverage. Rodgers is a high-profile veteran whose every word echoes through media cycles, betting markets, and the emotional lives of fans. When the league fines or disciplines star players for criticizing officials, it's trying to enforce boundaries, not because it wants to mute emotion, but because it wants to protect its officiating product from narratives that can undermine trust. And when that player is Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback whose career is a headline generator, the stakes feel different. Here's the part most people missed in the first hot takes. Rodgers didn't curse into a camera or launch a multi-platform tirade. He called out what he saw as a missed pass interference on the final play at the goal line, a play that in real time decided whether Pittsburgh walked out the division winner. That complaint landed raw because it came on the heels of a desperate, perfectly understandable attempt to win in the last seconds. He was emotional, he was direct, and he was public. But hold that thought, because there's a bigger thread here I'm keeping open for a moment. The league has a pattern when it comes to punishing players for public criticism of officials, and how they act with Rodgers will tell us a lot about where the NFL draws the line between acceptable heat-of-the-moment anger and punishable undermining of the officiating process. I'll explain why that matters in a minute, and why the consequence could be less about dollars and more about control. Back to what happened. After the game, Rodgers said he believed Marquez Valdes-Scantling was interfered with on the Steelers' final red zone play, and that the officials blew the call. That kind of remark isn't new to the NFL. Players, coaches, and even media personalities have publicly criticized refs before, but the league's disciplinary framework has been clear in recent seasons. Direct attacks on officials' integrity or competence often earn fines. The size varies, but the message is consistent. Question the officiating in private if you want to be safe. Do it loudly, and you may end up writing a check. Now here's the reveal I held back. Precedent matters, and the precedent is very specific. A recent example saw a high-profile player fined roughly $25,000 after similar public comments, not because the league wanted to punish emotion, but because it wants to stop a cascade where every disputed call becomes fodder for an uncontrolled narrative that threatens the perception of fairness. With Rodgers, the league isn't just sending a message to him, it's sending one to players, agents, and networks. Public critique of officials will be met with a cost. Why that's a bigger deal than a single fine? Rodgers' comments come in a week where every margin counts. The Steelers still have to beat Baltimore in Week 18 to win the AFC North. If the NFL fines Rodgers, feel the sting personally, but the team may also feel the tactical ripple. Public discipline creates a different kind of pressure. Officials are humans in uniforms. They read the environment. When an elite player loudly questions their integrity, it changes the optics around every borderline call he's involved in afterward. That's not to say officiating will tilt either way, but perception matters in high-stakes scenarios. Let's layer in the locker room dynamic. Rodgers is an alpha voice. Coaches lean on his presence in the huddle, and teammates look to him in clutch moments. If he's publicly rebuked by the league, it can galvanize a locker room. Our guy got fined, we rally. Or it can be a distraction. Appeals, PR choreography, and media circus that chew into preparation time for a win-or-go-home game. Mike Tomlin's steadying hand will be critical here. He has to refocus the group while the league does its work. There's also an institutional angle. The NFL acts to preserve its product. Officials make calls under irreducible human uncertainty, and the league has an interest in protecting them from a daily onslaught of public accusations. That's why fines exist. But the flip side is fairness. Fans and teams deserve transparent, consistent officiating. When a superstar calls out an egregious no call on national TV, many fans feel validated, and the league risks being perceived as disciplining dissent rather than addressing real mistakes. It's a tightrope. So, what are the practical outcomes to watch for in the next 72 hours? First, the size of any disciplinary action. A slap on the wrist, a warning, signals the league is calibrating. A six-figure fine tells you the NFL wants to make an example. Second, Rodgers' response. Does he accept it, issue an apology, or double down? The optics of humility versus defiance will shape public reaction and perhaps future league policy. Third, the Steelers' focus. Can they stay inward-looking and prepare for Baltimore without the story bleeding into practice reps and game planning? On the field, the consequences could be even more direct. Rodgers is a cerebral quarterback who wants control over the pocket, the cadence, and the mental flow of a game. An official's non-call that eliminates a potential game-winning touchdown doesn't just affect a single outcome. It generates a narrative of injustice that can drain competitive energy. If the league punishes Rodgers, it may inadvertently add fuel to the fire. The team rallies around him and the storyline grows, creating distraction right when focus is most needed. There's another subtle point worth unpacking. The class of player involved shifts how fans and stakeholders interpret the punishment. If a young player gets fined, it's a warning. If a veteran like Rodgers gets fined, it's an institutional note saying no one is above the rules. But it also risks looking like overreach. The NFL must balance fairness with image control, and it rarely wants to be seen as silencing a franchise quarterback for voicing what many fans think. As the Steelers pivot to a Week 18 showdown with the Ravens, where Lamar Jackson's status adds another layer of uncertainty, the league's move on Rodgers could alter that week's tenor. Imagine prepping for a winner-take-all and watching every reporter ask about fines and appeals instead of play calls and personnel. That's a distraction teams don't need. So what should Steelers fans hope for? Transparency and speed. A clear, concise ruling that articulates the violation, if any, the rationale, and any steps Rodgers must take, like a public statement, reduces lingering chatter. Vague or drawn-out disciplinary processes amplify noise and hamper preparation. From a competitive standpoint, the team needs to compartmentalize, control the controllables, and don't let an external soap opera be the thing that decides a season. Finally, and this is the question that lingers, what does the league want this moment to teach players? Is it watch your mouth, or is it we'll hold everyone accountable, but we'll also keep improving officiating transparency? The answer will shape how players and coaches talk about referees from now on. Will veteran voices be silenced or channeled into formal review processes? Will teams accept quieter internal critiques, or will they keep airing grievances publicly and accept the price? Aaron Rodgers could very well be fined. He could issue an apology. The league could frame this as business as usual, or this could morph into an off-season conversation about the role of public criticism in the NFL's ecosystem. Whatever the outcome, one thing's for sure. This is not just a finable moment. It's a test of the league's ability to balance accountability, free expression, and the competitive integrity of a sport that thrives on split-second judgments. So as the Steelers turn toward Baltimore, the real unresolved question hangs heavier than any monetary penalty. Will the team let a league ruling define their focus, or will they use it as fuel to play the kind of football that makes debates about officiating secondary to the only thing that ultimately counts, getting the win? Nobody wants to be on the hook for something they said after a loss until the league decides your words matter as much as your plays. This is one of those moments where the stadium lights go down and the fallout starts lighting up elsewhere. The Steelers walked out of Cleveland with a season still alive, but a division title gone. And Aaron Rodgers walked into the postgame and said the kind of thing that gets the league's attention. Pointed public criticism of officiating on a play that decided the game. Now the NFL is quietly weighing whether to make Rodgers pay for it. And that's a problem that reaches farther than a single fine. Why this matters isn't just about money. It's about tone, precedent, and leverage. Rodgers is a high-profile veteran whose every word echoes through media cycles, betting markets, and the emotional lives of fans. When the league fines or disciplines star players for criticizing officials,